Hi, and welcome to another edition of David Essel Alive, helping Americans heal, the most powerful, positive podcast in this galaxy, right here on Buzzsprout.com. I'm so glad to have you with us. Today, we're going to talk about something so unique, the secret of grief. When most of us think of the word grief, we think of sadness and mourning and loss. We think of tears. We think of pain. And that's all a part of it. But the part of grief I'm going to talk about today is the other side of grief. We don't take away the mourning, the sadness, the tears. As a matter of fact, it's really incredibly important in the grieving process. Whether we're grieving the loss of a pet, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, the loss of income, the loss of health issue, it doesn't matter. Grief can hit us from everywhere. Maybe our best friend of 30 or 40 years is moving out of town and we're in deep grief. We're not sure what we're going to do or how we're going to get by or how we're going to entertain ourselves without this special person in our life. In the last couple of years, I've lost my mom, lost my dad, lost my incredible dog, Saint. There's been a lot of losses, and I've had to go through a lot of grief in the last number of years. And in that period of time, grief has been an amazing teacher for me, teaching me things I never thought that I would learn from grief. Because I also believed until the last 4 years that grief was about sadness and loss and loneliness and tears and pain. That's all I knew about grief. Even though I taught grief recovery courses, it was really just venting courses. We didn't go deep like I'm going to today. We just asked people to share their pain and to write about their pain, which is an important part of grief. The grief process needs to be put on paper. We need to write about how we're feeling, how we're missing these people. This is part of grief. And it will bring up tears, and it will bring up feelings of loss, and it will bring up loneliness, and it'll bring up all that kind of stuff we want to avoid. So many of us avoid dealing with grief with alcohol and drugs and food. Sugar is a great numbing agent. You don't have to drink alcohol to numb grief. You can eat a lot of sugar and it'll do the same thing. We will do everything in the world. Maybe we'll binge watch on Netflix, or maybe we'll binge on social media or binge on the news to not deal with the pain inside. And yet there's a flip side when I talk about the secret of grief. So I'm going to encourage you in the beginning of the grieving process to use your pen and paper or your keyboard or whatever you do. Don't trust your brain. Don't ever trust your brain in healing of grief. But when something has shifted, you've lost someone or something so important to you, it's time to go immediately into the writing process. So we're going to talk step one is going to be the vent. Venting your pain, talking about how hard it is to be without that loved one, or to be without that pet, or to be without that job, or that house, or whatever it might be, right? We're going to write about the pain. We're going to write about the missing. We're going to go deep into that part of it because it's huge. But then we're going to shift gears. Within a short time of working together, we're going to start to write about the powerful side of that person, of that pet, the beauty that they brought to us. We're going to do the grief dance. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to, yes, go into the sadness and the loss and the grieving, but we're also going to go into the memory of the beauty and the joy that that individual brought into our existence, or that pet brought to our existence. I have people that will go into grief over the loss of any type of pet whatsoever. There's no judgment here. Whatever it is that you're grieving about needs your attention, but it needs it from both sides. Yes, it needs to vent. Yes, we need to let out that pain, absolutely. But we also need to marry that with the joy, with the memories, with the photos that bring back great thoughts of that individual, or I'm going to say again, that pet. There's a lot of us going through the grieving that comes with losing a best friend, a pal, a pet. It could be a cat. It could be a dog. It could be a parakeet, for gosh sake. My mom, oh my Lord. I think about my precious mom who's been gone 2.5 years now. The time has gone so fast, but she taught us the love of animals, but then we went through the loss of animals. And I'll remember when I was a child losing our first dog, how my mom taught us that it was okay to have those tears. And then she would bring out a picture when we first got the puppy, when we first got the 1-year-old from the shelter or the 2-year-old from the shelter. And then we would go and talk about the memories. See, so it was a balancing act. The secret of grief is balancing both the pain with the joy, the pain with the beautiful memory, the pain. And then also the secret of grief is this, that even when that pet has passed to the other side and they've crossed over the rainbow bridge, as we say, they're still with us. Their love is eternal. Their physical self is not here, but with a memory, their love is. And maybe it's a mom or a dad or a brother or a sister or an aunt or an uncle or a favorite best friend or a next door neighbor who you're so close to. Maybe it was a stepdad, a stepmom. And we remember the loss and we feel that pain of them not being in our life. And then we remember something beautiful. And then ultimately remember the secret that I'm telling you right now. The loved ones that have passed over are still with us. This is the secret of grief. This is the secret that most people don't understand. They're here. They're waiting for you to call out to them. They're waiting for you to write to them and invite them in. They're waiting for you to involve them in your life. And they're right there. They always will be. But it's up to you to create what we have called gateways to the other side, by writing letters to them every night, by sharing with them that you miss them, by sharing with them that you'd like to still have a relationship with them. Does that sound so bizarre? It did to me until I went through losing mom and dad, and I realized that I had work to do, that I didn't know as much about grief that I thought I did. And so I created my own program of gateways. And the very first gateway was writing letters to my mom. She died 1.5 years before my dad. And so mom was in bed with me every night as I wrote to her, standing next to me. There were times I felt her over my shoulder. There were times I felt her in front of me. I have stories up on Buzzsprout on my channel, David Essel Alive. I have this amazing story of one of her visitations that'll blow your mind. Just go there and find it and listen to it. It'll be one of the most beautiful stories you've ever heard about grief and about loss, and how we start to switch that and we start to open these gateways and we start to feel differently. The gateway of writing to my mom for 10 straight months, as I tell on our other podcast, was that she visited me in my conscious state. We had conversation multiple times now. I think it's been 3 times she's visited me in the last 2.5 years. Mind-blowing. The secret of grief is that there's a beautiful side of grief. There's a side of grief that is filled with connection and love. And we find, if we go down this pathway that I'm encouraging you to go down, that our love is eternal with those who have passed over. It hasn't changed at all. As a matter of fact, as bizarre as this sound, and every time I do a podcast or an interview on this topic and I say this, I know it sounds weird or strange to some people, but not to me anymore. I have created a deeper love with my mother and my father than I had when they were alive. And how do you say that? And how do you know that's true? And how do you feel that? I feel it and I know it's true because I've experienced it. I've experienced this incredible bliss with both my mom and dad while they're on the other side. They haven't left at all. Their love is eternal. My relationship with them is eternal. I don't have to go to the other side to have this relationship. It's here right now. It's valid. It's deep. It's live. It has energy every day. And it inspires me to help other people grieving, to let them know that if we approach it with just a slightly different angle, that the end result is going to be dramatically different than if we fell victim to the belief that grief is all about mourning and sadness. It's a part of it, but not the main part, not the joy, and not the secret. The secret is what I want you to walk away with, is that love, that bond with that pet or that person is never disconnected unless you believe it is. If you need help, we offer a free 20-minute discovery call with me. Go to talkdavid.com. If you're in the grieving process, I don't care if whoever it is that you've lost, it was 10, 15, 20 years ago or longer, or 2 days ago. If you're in the grieving process, let's talk for 20 minutes at no charge. Let's jump on the phone together. Just go to talkdavid.com and you'll see free discovery call. Sign up. We will be on the phone shortly, and I'll be able to help you bring that level of grief up to the secret of grief. It'll be a magical experience for both of us. And also, don't forget, at the website, we offer 3 books for free. They may be necessary in helping you with the grieving process also. Everything is at talkdavid.com. You're tuned in to the galaxy's most positive podcast ever, David Essel Alive, helping Americans heal, right here on Buzzsprout.com. And our purpose is singularly focused. It's all about good news with David Essel. I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Have a beautiful day.